Philip Heedle's long lost brother.
Okay. Well, I'm Jack, so that's all I got.
And I'm Jeff from NHL Analysis.
There you go. If you guys didn't see that, there's apparently everybody thinks I look like Philip Heedle, so I'm running with that. And you're listening to Triple Shift, and just for reference, we are recording this on the actual day of the trade deadline, but the episode obviously won't be out until Wednesday. So if something crazy happens on Tuesday, we won't be covering it. So basically, this is just going to be like we're going to run through pretty much everything that's happened since the last episode. We didn't really touch on any trades last episode, I don't think. So we'll catch up on that. There wasn't a whole lot, but yeah, basically it's just gonna be a trade deadline coverage, what you expect, and yeah, I mean, I don't know how else to describe it from there.
Pretty self-explanatory, right?
I really don't know how to explain it anymore. Anyway, I guess we can start first of all with the two waiver pickups that happened because NHL GMs finally did realize that waivers are a thing and decided to use them. The first one was Victor Mete going to Ottawa, and then Dallas claimed Sammy Vatanen right after that. So I guess we can start with the Mete to Ottawa one because that's probably the longest discussion I had on Twitter today. And yeah, so what are our thoughts on that?
Definitely a great pickup for Ottawa. I was kind of hoping that he'd fall to Vancouver, but he ended up didn't. And he's 22 years old, so you can't really complain. And he's a really good defenseman. Probably slot in on their second pair with Zub or something, but that's all I really have to say about that.
Yeah, I think it's really good asset management by Ottawa, like sneaky good. I mean, they trade Mike Riley for was a third round pick, and we'll get into that later. You trade Mike Riley for a pick, and then you pick up a better defenseman off waivers. Like, I mean, I really like the move. I like Mete. I think he got a lot. I think he got too much flack from Habs fans. But yeah, I like the move from Ottawa's perspective, and I think Mete will find a solid place in the Ottawa defense core. I think it'll be a place where he can thrive.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of similarities actually between Mete and Riley. Not just the fact that like they were cast-offs from the Canadians that went to Ottawa and then found like success, which I think Mete will, but just even in their games in general. If you actually look at Mete from last season compared to or from 2 years ago compared to Riley last season, they look almost identical when you compare their analytics. And of course, Mike Riley was placed in a top four role this year, and he was fantastic. And I think he'll be great in Boston. But again, we'll get into that a little bit later. Yeah, I mean, put Mete in a top four role where you can actually thrive, and I think you'll see a lot of success. And yeah, I mean, I think this was a mistake by the Canadians to just let him go. I think he's better than pretty much everybody they picked up in the last couple days, and he's kind of what they need. They need a skilled puck moving defenseman, and they just kind of let that go for nothing. And I mean, he's 22, so you can't even like look at that and say, well, he's like 26, 27, whatever. Like he's still young, and he's on a rookie contract. Like you can't tell me they didn't have any kind of trade market for him. I think the biggest loss here, I know, I think it was Patrick Bacon tweeted out about it. Everybody's complaining about like the Taylor Hall trade in Buffalo, which again we'll get into. But I think their biggest mistake was not claiming Mete. They had priority waiver rights, and they just kind of let him go. It seemed like that would have been a really good pickup for them, especially going into a rebuild, getting a 22-year-old defenseman for free. And they just kind of passed that up. So I think it's a really good claim by Ottawa. So I guess moving on to Vatanen to Dallas, which I think was a lot less of a story.
Well, Fatten's nothing special. He's old. He's making $2 million. I don't think that pick really has much upside. Like if taking him off waivers, maybe he could be a good, solid bottom like four defenseman playing on your third pair, ideally, and maybe you run him on the second power play. But he's honestly nothing that's special. And Mete's definitely the better claim here.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much really to talk about here. He's, as Jack said, old, doesn't play a very high pace game, even though he's a primarily offensive defenseman. He thrives on the power play and thrives, is generous. He's just kind of a, I don't know, like the pickup is
He's just kind of there.
whatever. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just kind of a
It's a
depth
move
add
for-
to a team contending for a playoff spot with Chicago and Nashville.
I thought it was going to lead to a Jamie Oslink trade, but it didn't. And I mean, Oslink was rumored. Like I saw him rumored to like 6 teams today, and he was probably the hottest name on the market, like just for rumors. And he didn't end up getting moved, which was interesting. I thought like picking up Vatanen would lead directly to that, but it didn't. Yeah, I feel the same way though. It was nothing. It's nothing special. He's a 7th defenseman. So I guess going back to March 27th, the Kings acquired Brandon Lemieux for a 4th-round pick. I guess quickly, who won? It's not really a big trade, but
I think LA won because I doubt that 4th-round pick becomes any better than Lemieux is now. Maybe it will, but you got a 4th or 3rd liner, and he's youngish. So I just think LA comes on top, taking away the player.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to choose a team, I'd say LA, just because. And right now, it looks like it's LA because I don't know how valuable that 4th-round pick is going to be. But I mean, who's to say? It's kind of just a lame trade.
yeah.
I mean, it's another depth trade just to get rid of Caps, and I guess I don't even know why the Kings wanted Lemieux, but you know what? To each their own, I guess.
It's a 2021
It's kind of like a
4th too, so it's not even like from next year.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of a. I mean, he's a sandpaper guy. He's just grit. At the end of the day, he's not very good. He's just kind of there to fight people and hit people and trash talk people and do whatever it is to get under the opponent's skin.
He's
Yeah,
definitely just there to be a body.
Yeah, for
pretty
sure.
much, yeah. Maybe it's something to do with expansion too. Might just be something like a trade piece for
Possibly.
for LA to protect somebody, but I don't know. So Chicago also with kind of a minor move, picking up Ville Hinostroza, who's had a rough go of it in Florida, in exchange for Brad Morrison, who's basically just a career AHLer. Obviously, I think we all pretty well agree that Hinostroza is the better player here. Hopefully, he can find something in Chicago, but I think it's a pretty obvious Chicago win. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. He slots in the middle 6, and he's a fairly skilled player. So trading for a random AHL guy, it's not going to hurt them at all. It's a better low risk, high upside for Chicago, I guess.
Yeah, I actually like Hinostroza, to be honest. I mean, even with Florida, like he wasn't great, but he's skilled enough to be a contributor in the middle 6. Time with the Coyotes was, I mean, I watched him a decent amount, and he was pretty electric on the offensive side. He was not like a crazy scorer, but he forechecked really well, used his speed. I mean, it's just another pickup as most of the early trades were.
Yeah.
But I mean, I like the pickup for Chicago.
Yeah, I mean it's nothing special, but it's just again it's a good middle 6 forward, and maybe even playing him like on a power play situation with somebody like Patrick Kane could be really interesting. I think you might be able to get something out of him there. So now we can get to one of the bigger trades that has happened over the last week plus, and that was the Islanders acquiring Kyle Palmieri and Travis Zajac from New Jersey in exchange for AJ Greer, Mason Jobst, I believe is how you pronounce it, a 1st in 2021 and a 4th in 2022. So Lou Lamoriello had to get Zajac back in his team. I guess was this an overpayment? I guess the biggest question here.
It definitely was an overpayment. I mean, what's his name? Didn't he say that like Zajac was the reason they didn't go for Hall?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's kind of stupid. And they have limited cap space, so they're paying a first rounder for probably 20 games out of him. I don't see the point in doing that. And Zajak's just nothing. I I guess it could help the top six and maybe bring some scoring for the playoffs, but if they don't make a run, it's such a useless trade.
I'm actually gonna have to disagree with you here. Maybe not that it's not an overpayment, but I don't think it's necessarily a useless trade. I mean, I don't like Zajac. Not that he's a bad guy. He's just not a good player anymore. He gets paid a shit ton of money. But Palmieri's he's really struggled this year, and I think that with the Islanders losing Anders Lee for the rest of the season, I think that's a really good pickup for them, even if it's a slight overpay. I like Palmieri's game. He thrives in like the slot areas. He loves his high danger chances. He's one of the best shooters because he thrives in the high danger areas. He's just, and part of my family's Devils fans, so I got to watch him a decent amount. He's a good offensive contributor that could bring a decent amount to this Islanders lineup, and if they manage to re-sign him, then I think we'll re-sign him for the right amount of term and money. Of course, I don't want to see them paying him a bunch of money for the next 5 years or whatever. But I think if they can re-sign him to a fairly decent deal that doesn't put them in a stranglehold for the next half decade or whatever the case may be, I think it could be. I think it could work out really well. Not a huge fan of what the Devils got in return, but if you're gonna get rid of, I guess that was the best package that they could get for him and Zajac.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as Jeff. I think it was a good pickup for it will potentially a good pickup for the Islanders. I have been a fan of Palmieri for the last couple of years. I think he's a good second line winger basically. I don't think he'll be able to match Lee's production, so I don't they didn't really replace Lee, I guess. But a late first in a draft that is kind of wide open, I don't think is that big of a risk. For the Devils, I guess getting a first is better than nothing, especially with what we've seen from other values. I think it kind of worked out for both teams. Was my take. I think I gave both teams a B when I ranked the trade. I just don't think there was any clear winner or loser here. I don't think it really changes the fortunes for the Islanders. It doesn't really change my opinion on them all that much. But I think they had him on a line with Zajac and Bailey. At least they did, which is an interesting third line. But yeah,
scored his first goal as an Islander the other day.
Oh, there you go.
It's the Rangers on the power play.
There you go. So maybe it'll spark the team to a cup. We'll see.
And yeah, it's who knows, man. The playoffs are weird, but I honestly, you said I don't think I don't think his goal is to replace Lily. I think it's hard to replace. Your captain, so your rental coming in. There's no way to really replace him, but replacing him in terms of production may not be obviously you're not getting the Kyle Palmieri of old, but you're still getting a guy that has the potential to score a lot in a short period of time if he's put into the right situation. So even if it's just matching goal production in a short span, I think the Islanders could definitely get that out of Palmieri, and I like the pickup for the short term, and even better for the long term if they can sign him to a fairly reasonable deal.
The next trade that was of some importance was Chicago acquiring Brett Connolly and Henrik Borgstrom, as well as defenseman Riley Stillman and a 7th-round pick in 2021. They sent to the Panthers in return the two Lucases, Lucas Carlson and Lucas Wallmark. Again, I think Chicago pretty clearly gets the more value here, and Florida was looking to clear cap space. We'll get into what they did with that cap space later. But on the surface, I at least give the edge to Chicago. Henrik Borgstrom's somebody I still think has a lot of potential. What do you guys think?
I think Chicago probably for face value they come out ahead, but I think for what Florida was able to do with other trades in the deadline, I think it could benefit them more. They cleared cap, and I guess it's a win-win trade. Looking at it and the big picture of what both teams could do, with Chicago getting a prospect that's fairly young and it still has some potential, and then Florida clearing the cap space to add more for their playoff run.
Yeah, I agree with Jack. I mean, big picture, I think it works out well for both teams. I mean, Bergstrom is somebody that I like as well. I think he's still got a lot in the tank. I don't think he was put into the best situations. But I mean, who really knows? Prospects are hit or miss. But yeah, I mean, I think for the Panthers, it was clearing the cap space. I think that was the right move, and they definitely got what they wanted out of the cap space. And Chicago got a veteran, a pick, and two prospects, I guess. So, I mean, it's not a bad trade for either team, and I think both could use it to their advantages in their own respective ways.
So quickly here we have a couple. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. By the way, with that one. Couple just kind of minor ones. Riley Nash going to Toronto for a 7th. The thing about Riley Nash, he won't be able to play until the playoffs, which could cause some slight chemistry issues. But I think Toronto easily wins this trade value-wise anyway.
Toronto Maple Leafs are cheating the system just like the Tampa Bay Lightning. I hope everyone knows that.
Smart.
Yeah, they're clearly cheating. They need to be banned. Their draft picks taken away. This sentiment is brought to you by Twitter users, hockey Twitter users to be more specific.
Okay, they'll get swept by Montreal in the first round anyway. It won't matter.
Yeah, it's true. They'll find a way to blow it. Sorry, Toronto fans.
Yeah, I mean Riley Nash. That's a win for Toronto, I think.
Sure, I like Riley Nash a lot. He's fun. He's good defensively, which is always a plus.
Yeah. Then you had the 2 Colorado moves, with them picking up Dubnyk for Greg Pateryn and a 5th, and then picking up Nemeth for a 4th. The Dubnyk move is questionable. I think there was probably better goalies out in the market they could have got for maybe a 4th in Pateryn. But again, it's Colorado, so Dubnyk will probably turn into Vezina Dubnyk again. Patrick Nemeth I kind of like as a depth pickup for them. But either way, I don't think these are big, real game-changing moves for the Avalanche.
Well, that Sakic just gave up Greg for Dubnyk, so that's got to have some effect. Greg's kind of a legend, and you got Dubnyk, who's one of the worst goalies in the NHL. But like you said, playing Colorado's defense, it'll probably turn into some hell of a player.
Yeah, I want to admit I was not a huge fan of the Dubnyk pickup, and I still am not. Obviously, now that I have said that, Dubnyk will go up to put up a 960 save percentage in like 5 games or whatever, and he'll go off, and then he'll win the Avalanche the Cup and all this crazy stuff because Philip Grubauer got injured again. But I mean, just I don't know. I don't know what people still see in Dubnyk. I know Joe Sakic is really good at his job, but David Riddick went for like a 2022 third. I like David Riddick much better than Devin Dubnyk, so I just don't really understand the benefit in picking up one of the worst goalies in the NHL. I'm just not a fan.
I'm kind of in the same boat. However, Devin Dubnyk will help prove a point I made on Instagram a couple weeks ago, where I talked about how a team should just kind of run with a mediocre goalie for cheap. And obviously Dubnyk's not cheap, but it's on the last year of his contract. And if you just put a good team in front of him, you'll be fine. And Dubnyk can either prove me right or prove me completely wrong in that case. So I'm kind of hoping for the best for him anyway. But yeah, I mean, on the surface, like his underlying numbers are very good. But again, his underlying numbers weren't very good in Minnesota either, and a good defense in front of him won him a Vezina. So we'll see. Another small move. This is one of the things Florida did with the cap space that they got from the Connolly trade, and that was picking up Brandon Montour for a third-round pick in 2021 from the Sabres. The Sabres fire sale continues. Obviously, acquiring a third-round pick here. Montour is somebody that I still have faith in. I think he just kind of suffered from the whole Buffalo effect. And I think in Florida, in a situation like that, he might be able to turn back into what he used to be. But, I mean, for a third-round pick, it's not a huge risk, I guess. And he can kind of replace Zach Blad. But I like the move for Florida. I don't know, how do you guys think about Brandon Montour at this point?
I think Florida wins. I think Buffalo will probably just draft a nobody with the third round pick because it's Buffalo drafting.
Yeah, there's that too.
And Montour is a great like puck moving defenseman. I think he slots in as your like third to fourth D man and then plays on your second power play. And I think he could probably put up some at least above average results going from one of the worst defensemen in the NHL in Buffalo.
Yeah, I still have faith in Brandon Montour. I like him a lot as a puck mover. I think, like everyone, he suffers in Buffalo. I mean, there's just not much else to say. I mean, he was solid in Anaheim, and I think he could return to that form with the coach in Quenneville that teaches a strong defensive game that can easily transition into solid offensive, like rush and puck movement and good in zone play. I think he could really benefit from that. I don't think anyone can ever replace Ekblad fully, especially not a guy that you acquire at the deadline, but Montour is about the closest you're going to get to it.
Yeah, it really sucks too because Ekblad was having a fantastic season this year. Just to see him have it end the way that it did. There is a chance that he comes back if they make a somewhat deep playoff run, but even then, you're talking about a guy coming back who hasn't really skated a whole lot, and he won't have the time to kind of recuperate. Unlike somebody like Kucherov, who's already like been practicing and stuff.
Skating, yeah.
That's such a bullshit move there.
Yeah,
he's fine. He could play now.
Oh, for sure.
LTR,
yeah, but they're just like, yeah, we'll let you rest.
They have a $99 million cap hit for the playoffs. They're not. That's why he's not playing right now.
So speaking of a $99 million cap hit in Tampa Bay, the Tampa Bay Lightning traded for defenseman David Savard from the Columbus Blue Jackets as part of a 3-team deal with Detroit, and they sent a first, a third, first and a third. This is all messed up here. I don't know what the market exactly was, but I think it was a first, a third, and a fourth.
Yeah.
Was the actual trade. Detroit got the fourth to eat 25% of his contract, and Columbus ate the other 50%. I think people are pretty well in consensus this was an overpayment for Tampa Bay. I really like David Savard though. I think the Jets should have been in on David Savard. I think he would have been perfect there. And I mean Tampa Bay might just have the best defensive core in the NHL anyway. So I mean I don't think they're too concerned about the first round pick at this point. But I don't know, what do we think about the David Savard move?
I think it's a huge out by Tampa Bay. Nemeth went for a 4th round pick, and he's arguably just as good impact wise. And you're giving up like a first. They did it at the last deadline. They gave up a first for Gaudreau, and they keep overpaying for these like lower class players, I guess you could say, and they're just going to win the cup anyways. So people will defend it and be like, oh, they won the cup, so it doesn't matter anyways. But you're still overpaying for them when you could get similar players for way less and try to acquire higher end and far more skilled and better impact players with those picks that they give up.
I mean, it's trade deadline day, right? So overpaying is kind of it's kind of the trend. Same with free agency, but I mean, I like to pick up a lot for Tampa. I mean, they might have overpaid. I don't think he's worth the first, but so be it. I mean, he's their defense on the right side has been not so good lately. So it's just, I mean, if you slot him next to Victor Hedman, or I mean, him and Victor Hedman is something that I'd love to see, just because it gives Hedman more opportunity to roam and step away from the defensive responsibilities that he has. I mean, even if they overpaid for him, I still really like the pickup for them. I like Savard a lot. I think he's been really good over the last 3 years. He's been, I mean, solid. I like him a lot.
But if you look at Tampa's defense, like when healthy, you're talking about Sergachev, McDonough, Chernak, Hedman, and Savard being your top 5 guys. That's
pretty
really
impressive.
Good. Like, I don't think you can complain about that. And I get that the first is an overpayment. But, I mean, yeah, the reality is if Tampa goes on a run, I don't really think they're really going to care about like, the 31st or 32nd pick in the draft. And, I mean, Tampa, although it was Yzerman drafting at the time, Tampa is still showing a very good scouting system in the draft anyway, which isn't an excuse for giving up a first-round pick, but it makes it easier to do so. It reminds me a lot of what the Rangers used to do, like in the mid-2000s, where they just give up first-round picks forever, except the Rangers can never win a cup. So,
poor Hank, man.
Well, yeah, it's easier to swallow a little bit, especially since Tampa's already won one. Anything at this point is just extra. And I mean, obviously they're one of the best teams in the NHL, and they just got better. So, there's that too. I get one of the defensemen that Montreal picked up after waiving Victor Mete was John Merrill for a 5th-round pick. I mean, on the surface, they win this trade just value-wise because John Merrill's a really good shutdown defenseman. But again, I think just fit-wise, I don't see why they need another stay-at-home like rock of a defenseman on the blue line. They kind of have too many of those already.
Sherratt 2.0.
Yeah, literally. And the thing about Merrill that I think irritates me the most, just from a Canadian's perspective, because they're just going to waste another talent, is the fact that this probably pushes Kulak out of the roster when everybody's healthy, and now you're losing even more versatility there, especially since Kulak's actually been really good this year. Mind you, so is Mete, and he's gone now too. But on the surface, like, I mean, they win this trade value-wise, but it's just another example of Marc Bergevin making a deal and winning a deal that doesn't really improve his team.
Yeah, I like John Merrill. I mean, he's solid. He's solid for depth. But I'm not a huge fan of the fit, like you said. I like Kulak a lot, and I think Montreal benefits from having him in the lineup, night in and night out. I mean, if you have a guy like Mete, who's solid on both ends of the ice, I mean, why? I just don't really understand giving him up. Offer on the table, which I doubt there was, but I mean, outside of Merrill's mullet, there's not really much to brag about, except for his defense is elite. It's really good. He does have a sick mullet.
That's like an ECHL player right there. That's beautiful.
I mean, he's good as a depth defenseman, but he's an absolute black hole offensively. So, I mean, I just don't understand why you feel the need to pick him up. I don't know. I just don't really understand it. He's good. He's fine. Don't get me wrong, but I don't. In terms of what Montreal needs, it's just confusing for me.
Downgrading is what they did. And then you don't get any return for your puck-moving defenseman that's 22, and you acquire more of what you got. It just doesn't make any sense. And Merrill doesn't.
Montreal
really
fans are going to be in our mentions
in a way.
But Victor Mete wasn't physical enough, so Montreal fans are going to be in our mentions.
He was small and 5'9", and that's just not. It doesn't cut it.
Can't push people out in front of the net, which
we need more.
I agree with, but Come on.
Yeah, but
We need more big men like Shea Weber is what we need.
Eh.
Big men.
see, like the funny thing about Matt, and I know we talked about Matt already, but I literally like this was the thing I argued about on Twitter today the most was second pairing defenseman. It was insane. Like it's trade deadline, and this was the number one argument I had with people. I like too many people look at Victor Mete, and I swear to God, and I threw this up on Twitter, and it was if Victor Mete was playing exactly the same as he was this season, but he had 4 goals and like 8 assists. Is there the same stigma around him not being an NHL defenseman? If he's like exactly the same game, but he just got a bit more puck luck, probably not. He's probably still in the Canadiens today. Like it's the Adam Fox syndrome where if a player doesn't put up points, most people are gonna be like, oh well, he's no good. And I mean, there was obviously the joke about Mete like never scoring, and I mean, fair. The guy can't finish.
It's pretty funny.
But like nobody on the Canadiens can finish. Like that's a symptom of the team itself. Like if you put Mete in a situation where he can actually have like scorers around him, and I think playing with somebody like Brady Tkachuk consistently is going to help him out there. Like he will generate more offense for you because he's one of the best carrying defensemen in the NHL. Like he's on Roman Josi level last year in that regard, which is insane. I really don't get like the whole stigma about him not being an NHL level defenseman. Like it's nuts to me. And even if
He's
you're
a
getting
third
knocked off the
defenseman.
puck, like if you're not allowing high danger chances against, I don't really give a shit if you're not winning puck battles in the corner. Like the other team can possess the puck all they want. If you're not giving up quality scoring chances, you're doing your job. Like realistically, right? Like I don't think I'm crazy there. If you're
You're
not,
not.
like, it's insane. Like it's I don't understand. And I mean, to be
It's
fair,
'cause-
John Merrill's better defenseman than Mete, like defender than Mete was. So they did improve in that aspect, but I don't know. I really don't understand how people don't think he's a
Just look
NHL
how
defenseman.
people think about it is looking at defensive results. They see that Merrill's a bigger defenseman and that he hits, so they automatically assume that he's better defensively, which is true this time. But just because a player is better, like or a bigger hitter, that doesn't mean that they don't allow high danger opportunities. Like look at Tyler Myers. He's 6'8" and throws headshots all the time, but he can't defend for his life. It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, on one hand, I don't think Mete has the. I don't think he processes the game as well as Adam Fox does.
Oh no, I'm
But
not.
at the
I'm
same
not trying
time-
to compare the two at all. But I'm just
At the same time, I think if you're gonna, I mean, berate one for being small and not physical enough, then you can't have the Adam Fox as a top 10 defenseman rhetoric in your, in your tweet history. Like, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, even if you want to say that, I mean, like I said, even if you want to say that Adam Fox is a much better thinker of the game than Victor Mete, which he is, there's still no reason that you can say that Victor Mete is a terrible defenseman or he's like a 6th defenseman. Like he's just not. He's a good puck mover. He skates well. Does he make mistakes? Of course he does. He's 22 years old. I mean, give the guy a break. He was playing in a market where the fans despised every move he made. Like, I mean, Jay Fresh did a whole breakdown of his game, and while he made mistakes and he wasn't as physical as you'd like a defenseman to be in front of the net, there were still, I mean, he's still a good defenseman the majority of the time. I just don't see what Habs fans had to pick with him. It just didn't make much sense to me. Like, I would absolutely take Victor Mete on my team. Like, I think he'd be the 5th defenseman on Predators because the Predators have a really good decor. On a mediocre team, yeah, I think he could be their 3rd or 4th best defenseman. I mean, he's a really good defenseman that can provide some solid top 4 in a solid top 4 presence on their defense on the defense core. I just don't get why Habs fans nitpicked every move he made on the ice. Like it was like they had some vendetta against him or something.
I guess a lot of it goes back to like PK Subban being a really fun, electric, puck moving offensive defenseman, And I mean, Subban made a lot of mistakes, but he like put up points, so that kind of negated it. And for a lot of people, and I mean, I kind of understand where they're coming from. If a player doesn't put up points, it kind of doesn't make up for the turnovers and everything. And I know that's a flawed way to look at it, but it's just the reality of the situation. And it's unfair to Mete, and I think again in a better situation, that's not really an issue. But honestly, I'm kind of done talking about Victor Mete at this point. Like I said, I ranted about him for like the entire day today. Anyway, let's move on to one of the Leafs. We're not even at the actual trade day yet, so. But the Toronto Maple Leafs acquired Nick Foligno from Columbus, as well as Stefan Noesen from San Jose. Again in the 50-25 like cap recapture thing. They gave up a first in 2021, a fourth in 2022, and a fourth round pick in 2021 as well. Nick Foligno was another guy who was a very hot topic of conversation, especially considering a trade that happens a couple away from here. But how do we feel? I guess we can throw David Rittich in there too, because that trade happened right after David Rittich was traded for a third round pick in 2022. So those were definitely the two biggest moves by the Leafs going into the trade deadline. How do we see the Leafs now?
I think Foligno's a great player, and he seems like a really nice guy. He's basically Jack Campbell, but a gritty hitter, and he just seems like an awesome dude. But I think they overpaid. But I think he could provide a lot of value, maybe on the first line beside Matthews and Marner if they want to try something like that, where he can be like so sound defensively, which will help both of them, and just let them carry him offensively. And I think he could put some good results. Looking at what Buffalo got back from Hall makes the trade look a little worse because I think Hall might be a slightly better player at this point. But you can't really complain when you get a player of a pretty good caliber that can help you a lot defensively, especially for the playoffs.
I like Foligno. I think he's a solid depth guy that can provide some sandpaper in the bottom of the lineup. However, I think this was one of Dubas's, or the first Dubas L in terms of trades. It's not even that I think that the L is like, I mean, it's not like a huge, I mean, because Dubas hasn't really made a bad trade. It was just kind of like a why overpay for this guy type thing. It's not really like he lost massive amounts in terms of value. Stefan Noesen's just a body. Like, it doesn't really matter. He's just going to be like a taxi squad guy or an AHL guy. But I don't know. I just felt like they could have gotten better. I mean, I like Foligno. He's had a fairly rough year, but I mean, they could have gotten Hall for, like a roster, or not like a lower tier roster player and like a second round pick.
Basically.
I mean, I would have taken Hall for that over Nick Foligno any day of the week. I mean, if Dubas believes that sandpaper is what they need and depth defense guys is what they need, then by all means, go right ahead, even though I think it was an overpay.
I agree. I do think this was it was an overpayment. I think it was a slight overpayment. I don't think it was as bad as the Palmieri trade was. But for me, and I mean I guess first of all the David Rittich thing was just to get a depth goaltender. Everybody saw what happened to Colorado and people freaked out last year, where like 5 of their goalies get hurt and they're rocking with like Michael Hutchinson. So whatever, that's fine. But Nick Foligno specifically, I like the fact that he can kind of move throughout the lineup for them. And although I think Hall would have been a better fit, I don't think Hall brings them that versatility. Like Hall has to play on one of those top 2 lines, whereas Foligno can kind of play on any of the top 3. And especially if you add him with like a Riley Nash, potentially, I think you could build a really good shutdown line for the Leafs, which could help if they have to play a team like the Oilers in the second round. Yeah, I mean, they overpaid, But at the same time, I think I saw a stat on Twitter where it's like the Leafs have had like 27 draft picks in the last 3 years or something crazy like that. And I mean, they have one of the best prospect pools in the league. So I think for the Leafs to give up a first-round pick means a lot less than a team like Tampa Bay, who doesn't have that prospect pool to fall back on. Like, the Leafs missing a first-round pick in a draft year that isn't very good, it really isn't going to hurt them in the future. Their pool is good enough that they could go all in this year and not feel like long-term effects from doing so. So I mean, value-wise, it's a slight overpayment, but I really like the fit for Nick Foligno here overall. So that's where I'm at on that one.
Yeah, I mean, the prospect pool thing that you touched on, pretty important because, I mean, like you said, Toronto has an upper tier prospect pool. Maybe not Kings territory, but it's still probably top 10 to 12.
Yeah, somewhere in there. Even top.
So,
even in the top 10, probably. I'd throw them.
Yeah, I mean, they don't need to worry about a first round pick as much, but I still don't. I still would be hesitant to give up a first round pick, but if you're the Leafs, I don't think you're too worried about it.
Braden Coburn was traded to the Islanders. I don't really think we have to touch on that. It was for a 7th. It's a depth move, whatever. Mike
He's
Riley,
so good, Braden Coburn.
He had a really good season his rookie season. He was unreal. Mike Riley to the Bruins for a 3rd-round pick was one of the moves that I really liked from the Bruins. It is from 2022, so I think the value coming back for Ottawa here is really good too. Mike Riley's having a career season. He looks like a legitimate top 4 defenseman right now. I think he fits perfectly in Boston. I think this is kind of a win-win for both teams, to be honest with you. But I think this was. I mean, Boston obviously made a bigger move that we'll talk about in a second. But I like Mike Riley. I think this is a good fit.
Yeah, Boston gets their top 4 defensemen with that terrible defensive core that they're rocking with the other night. And
that was bad. That was terrible.
It was no McAvoy, and that core just.
Yeah, if there was ever an argument for McAvoy for the Hart, it was that game.
Yeah.
That was insane.
Poor Vladar, I felt really bad because most of the goals were either crazy power play tips from TJ Oshie, who he batted one out of midair, and then or cross seam one timers. I felt, and then there was one, I believe from, I don't know, it wasn't, who was it? Nick Dowd, I think was he just sniped one top corner. There's no way he was gonna save it. I felt terrible. I don't like the Bruins at all, but you hate to see a goalie get shelled like that just because, there's nothing he can do.
Yeah, it didn't even help that they were rocking a backup AHL goalie in that game either.
Yeah.
Couldn't even rely on Rask or Halak to bail them out. So yeah, it was a mess.
Yeah, and Halak, he needed rest, so he could. They didn't put him in, couldn't pull him out. So
yeah, just got all right, you're just gonna deal with this and then go back to the Providence
tough
Bruins
to
for the rest of the
watch.
season.
Yeah.
So I got the next move here was really, I didn't see this one coming at all. But it was the Pittsburgh Penguins getting Jeff Carter for 2 conditional draft picks. I believe the conditions on them are if they get to the Cup final, one of the picks turns into a 2nd, and if they if Carter plays 50% of his games next year, I think, with Pittsburgh, if he re-signs, then the 4th turns into a 3rd, I think is what it was. So it was something complicated like that anyway. But it was a conditional 3rd and 4th, and then they turn into a 2nd and 3rd if the Penguins make the Cup final and if he plays 50% of the games next season with Pittsburgh, I believe.
Just
were the
hearing those conditions were just made it so much worse.
Jeff Carter isn't very good.
He's a black hole offensively, and he's black hole defensively. I don't know what they expect him to be. This isn't 2012 anymore. He isn't a first-line center, and you're giving up a lot of draft real estate when you got nothing, and one of the worst prospect pools in the league. Just doesn't make sense to overpay for such a old, I guess you could say, terrible player like that.
When you overpay for a washed-up depth forward, when you have that chance, you do it. Do it.
Every time.
That's the Penguins' motto.
the
Right
Brian
now?
Burke motto. Never mind.
Yeah,
get-
that's
get
there
Jack
you go.
Johnson of the offensive game, you do it every
God.
time.
Fun
I don't
fact,
know.
actually,
Yeah,
Jeff Carter leads the league in rebound chances created.
Yeah,
by
I
the
saw
way.
that on Money Puck.
So that's kind of cool. But other than like that's the one redeeming
That-
quality of Jeff
Only
Carter's
thing
game.
that's going for him right now.
is his rebound generation, which means he isn't scoring. He's just generating rebounds.
I mean, he was back in like 2010. He was traded for Sean Couturier and Jacob Voracek, so he's got to be some elite
Yeah, but
player.
Jeff Carter was actually good back then. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's
He's actually a
true.
really good player.
But that was embarrassing that they did that. to
Yeah, that was
Columbus.
a route. Mind you, it led to 2 cups for LA. So.
No, but Columbus gave
Oh,
that
for
up.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, sorry, it was Columbus that. Oh, yeah,
Jacob
Columbus, that
Voracek
sucks.
and Sean Couturier.
Yeah.
So bad.
And then and then they traded Carter for like Wayne Simmons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After
it's-
39
it's
games.
insane.
So bad.
So I guess we can move on to the I guess the second biggest trade of trade deadline, because the one that happened way at the end. But it was the Bruins acquiring Taylor Hall and Curtis Lazar, who, by the way, were the two best players traded in this deal, in exchange for Andreas Bjork and a second-round pick in 2021, which isn't even the good draft class. My thing on this, and I know people are ripping on the Sabres for not getting a first-round pick for Taylor Hall, but here's the thing. Taylor Hall has a no-movement clause, and I want to get this out of the way first because it irritates me. Taylor Hall is a no-movement, and I love ripping on the Sabres. Don't get me wrong; like we've made a living of that on this podcast. But Taylor Hall had a no-movement clause, right? You can throw out, the Leafs should have offered this, or the Panthers should have offered that, or whatever. He decided where he wanted to go. If he told the Sabres, listen, I'm going to Boston, and that's it. I don't care what other offers you get. They couldn't accept a better offer. And that's the thing. And we don't know if that was the case. Maybe Florida offered something better and whatever. Like Buffalo's just stupid and didn't take it. But
Probably. That's probably what happened.
I really don't think I think Taylor Hall had one team on his no movement clause, and it was the Boston Bruins. And that was the only place he was going to go. I feel like that has to be the case here. And I'll give I'll give the Sabres the pass on that. Although it is hilarious that they absolutely got dismantled in this trade on face value.
Yeah, that makes sense. I could see that. Face value, I think we know who wins here. And overall, I think it will help the Bruins in the playoffs. They add a play driver to their second line. After that first line, there's really nothing. So I think Hall could add a lot of value to them for this playoffs.
I am going to rip on the Sabres because I enjoy it.
Just anyway, let's just do it. I mean, yeah, so do I. I respect it.
So, look, I mean, what you said made sense, 100%. I don't know. I mean, I don't think my problem was the deal. I think my problem was not waiting. Because I think NHL fans, like, once they got over the initial shock of Anders freaking Bjork going to the Sabres for Taylor Hall, and I mean, once they got over the initial shock, I think it would be much more forgivable if Buffalo had waited until like an hour before the deadline or even at the deadline, like the cutoff, to make that deal. Because then you could at least come to the conclusion that, well, they probably didn't get a better offer, or they probably didn't get a better offer from the Bruins, just that team specifically, and that was the only thing they were going to get, and they figured we should move this guy out, so we should do it. But, I mean, for one, this is just another reason not to give your, like, one-year guys no movement clauses. But it's just, like, I don't know, not only are they retaining salary, but they're also getting a extremely questionable hockey IQ third line, fourth line forward. And I mean, what else did they get? Like, that's literally the rest of the package. Like, a second. I mean, yeah. I mean,
next year. Like, even if this was the only offer, I think they could have pushed for a second next year and gotten somebody better. Like, they could have got like DeBrusque or something instead of Bjork.
Yeah, I
And
know.
this
I
looks a lot
mean,
better.
I was talking about it earlier this morning, and I was with some Preds fans actually I was conversing with on Twitter, and it was just one, they didn't wait. They did the deal at midnight. Like what's the rush? I just don't understand what the point is of doing it that early when a team like the Bruins, who have had trouble scoring and creating offense, like outside of the perfection line in terms of depth. I mean, I genuinely believe that if Buffalo had waited, I think Boston could have become more desperate and offered up a first. Like I genuinely believe that could be a likely possibility, and I think that pulling the trigger that early was a mistake. I think I would be less harsh on them if they had waited, because like I said, I mean, it's a lot different when you're doing the deal at midnight than you are when you're doing it at 2 p.m. Central Time, 3 Eastern, when the deadline hits.
Yeah, I get your point there. But I feel at the same time though that there really wasn't another alternative out on the market for the Bruins, to kind of push and make this deal. I mean, I feel like if the Bruins weren't going to get Hall, they were looking at Foligno or Palmieri, and both of those guys were off the market already. So I don't think, from the Bruins' perspective, I really don't think they would have got. I mean, obviously, as the time goes by, they might end up feeling like, hey, we have to add somebody. But at least like for the market pushing them out, like if Foligno was still in the market, for instance, I could see the point of holding on. But there really wasn't an alternative for the Bruins out there. Like I think this was probably the best offer Boston was going to make at this point, unless they changed the player for sure. Like in that case, like obviously the Bruins, the Sabres could have just held out and been like, yeah, no, we want your second next year instead. I don't know if the Bruins end up giving much more than what they did though. In this case,
I feel like the market pushing them out though would, I mean, kind of force their hand. Like like you said, I mean, if they're forced to give up I mean, if they lost out on Palmieri, if they lost out on Foligno, and Sweeney thinks that they need a forward, and if I'm Sweeney, then yeah, I mean, looking at the team's scoring, I mean, we just got killed 8-1 that night. Like I'm looking at the scoring and saying we need a forward that can provide scoring outside of the first line. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's tough because we don't know what goes on behind the scenes, so we're obviously just looking at this at face value and just kind of inferring what goes on. But I just don't see how Buffalo makes that deal other than, I mean, it's just other than we didn't have a better offer on the table, which I haven't heard yet. That might be the case, but we just haven't heard about that yet. It's just, I don't know. It's just a really confusing one from a fan's perspective, and Buffalo continues to be the laughingstock of the NHL.
So another minor deal that happened earlier today was Adam Gaudette going to Chicago in exchange for Matthew Highmore. Analytically, Highmore's been the better player this year, but obviously Gaudette has the age and potential. So I think Chicago wins this trade long term, but it was just a weird deal here for Vancouver, at least from what I saw.
It's classic Benning selling low on his players when he probably could have sold much higher on him after he had the 35 points and 18 goals last season. Just always what he does. Can't make a move to save his life that benefits his team in the long run. He's always just looking to get those fourth liners so he can re-sign them for 3x3.
I don't foresee any cap problems in the future.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
gotta sign 2 franchise players.
Offer sheet, so it doesn't matter. Of course, not gonna have any.
He's not even qualifying. Just let him walk.
Just let him go. Yeah.
What's gonna happen?
That'll solve all the cap issues right there. Perfect.
Top 10 center? Who needs them?
But yeah, this was a weird deal. just I was in class. I took my phone out and I said, "Why?" I
So
literally just
unnecessary.
muttered. I literally under my breath. I said, "Why?" Like it was just like I don't. And I've got like Hawks fan friends who were like happy about it. Like, well, but at the same time, it was like, what are you doing? Why? What is the point of this? What are you accomplishing? It
The
just
most
doesn't make any
unnecessary
sense.
trade ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a weird one. Yeah, the Edmonton Oilers made their like one move of the deadline that was acquiring Dmitry Kulikov, who is having a bounce back season, for a conditional fourth. I'm not sure what the conditions are on it. I think it has something to do with them getting to the Stanley Cup final. Uh, but I mean probably. Um, I'm just kind of disappointed in Edmonton not doing anything today. My biggest thing when I talked about it on my like hour and a half long story today on Instagram was if the Oilers weren't going to be aggressive and go for a run, they should have flipped Tyson Barrie today. And I mean Tyson Barrie's value to somebody, uh, especially to a I guess less intelligent GM, would have been
Jim
insanely
Benning.
high based on his point production this season, and they could have really got something, and they wouldn't even have to sell. They could go out and get somebody with term to replace him. There was enough guys that they could even trade for somebody like a Josh Manson or something who was on my trade block as somebody who could have went today, um, and still ended up with a better defenseman. Uh, it was just a weird day for the Oilers. I don't know why Ken Holland just kind of stood pat with his roster, especially with the Leafs loading up, and even Montreal to a lesser extent loading up. Both Edmonton and Winnipeg, I was really disappointed in. I think they both needed defensemen. Kulikov's fine, but he's not going to change what the Oilers are at this point.
I definitely can't complain with defenseman depth, but looking at it, like you said, like unintelligent GMs, well, I think Holland is one of them. Obviously, he's keeping Barry around when he probably could have sold it to a team that's like has a Jim Benning type GM that will give up massive, like probably a first round pick and a prospect just because he thinks Tyson Barry's this and whatever, thinks he's Quinn Hughes 2.0 or whatever. They should
I
have sold
mean,
on him.
and then it was also confounding because they were rumored to be in on Jamie Alexiak, which I thought was a really good idea. Like that was I was scrolling through Twitter and that popped up and I saw that and I was like, wow, that would actually be a really good move for the Oilers. And then that didn't. And then they got Dmitry Kulikov, who's Dmitry Kulikov. Oh yeah, I mean, there's fans. You got Dmitry Kulikov, who has been
Yeah, I mean he's
a
fine.
a very mere whatever. He's just a whatever defenseman.
By the way, just a quick note. With about like 2 minutes left in the Jets Senators game, Victor Mete currently sits with an 86.08 expected goals for percentage today.
Jeez.
In his first game with the Ottawa Senators. Um,
Stuck on that one, Habs fans.
he also played 22 minutes today. Or no, not 22 minutes. He played 9.7 minutes, 22% of the game. For the Ottawa Senators. So about 10 minutes.
They didn't play a ton.
86% expected goals for. Anyway, the next deal here, I guess Colorado's final move was picking up Carl Soderberg again for Josh Dickinson. It's fine, whatever. We don't have to touch on that one. Matthias Janmark to Vegas seemed like an overpayment. I think the biggest thing they gave up here was the third. This trade was really confusing. They swapped him with the Shark. Oh, it was a second and a third was the big thing here for Matthias Janmark. That seems
More
like
than
a
the Hall
lot.
deal.
Yeah, that really seems like a lot to give up for a guy who wasn't very good this year. Chicago actually had a really they were one of my winners for today. We'll get into that at the end. They had a really strong deadline, I think. But yeah, this seems like kind of an overpayment for Vegas, where they just kind of missed the boat on everybody and ended up just going for Janmark just because.
Like,
Yeah.
Definitely.
I feel like Janmark could really thrive in Vegas' system, though. To be honest, like play a like having watched Chicago decent amount this year. I'm no Chicago fan. I'll never claim to be one. I hate the Blackhawks with all of my heart and soul. I I just
That's probably why you hate Kane so much. You biased stat nerd.
I I just I like Janmark, and I think that the board system is all about hard forechecking and speed and getting pressure on the puck carrier. Like that is literally Janmark's game, and I think he could really bounce back. And I mean, he hasn't had a good year analytically so far, but I really think he could bounce back in Vegas' system under DeBoer, especially if he's playing with guys like Alex Tuck. I think he could really benefit from that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
it is what it is at this point. Really, it
it's
feels a lot like
uneventful.
the Tatar move that they made, where they gave up way too much for him. There's the potential that it works out, but I don't know. This trade actually appeared. We must be getting to the end of these. The Washington Capitals Anthony Mantha trade is next according to NHL.com.
Oh
I
yeah.
feel like they have this listed way too early, but whatever, it's fine. Yeah, Anthony Mantha, right at the buzzer. This one was by far the most surprising.
What a trade, eh?
Steve Yzerman.
This is
Oh
insane.
my.
God, he's a genius.
So yeah, the full trade
Smartest
is
man alive.
Anthony Mantha from Detroit in exchange for Jacob Vrana, Richard Panik, 2021 first and a 2022 second. I really like Anthony Mantha. I've been a
Unreal,
huge
man.
supporter of Anthony Mantha.
Braun is better than him.
But this is an insane haul for Steve Yzerman, who I think just reclaimed the title of best GM in the NHL with this one, in my opinion, especially since the lackluster deadline that Joe Sakic had. But I mean, I think Anthony Mantha is a great player, but this was a lot for him.
Yeah. Well, Yzerman or Sakic, whether or not whoever you want to say is the best GM, they're both fantastic and really ahead of all their peers. But that's just such a good trade. You get Vrana, who's like 2 years younger, I believe, who's arguably been a better player, and then you add like a first and a second to that. Just one of the part of the best deal of the deadline, and just most interesting as well. So unexpected, and I just I turn on my phone. I'm just like, what the hell? What happened? Why did this happen? Just great to see as a fan.
Yeah, I mean, you said you got the Brana in the first and second, but don't forget you also get a very solid analytical depth pickup in Panik, who actually has been. I mean, when I've watched the Caps, he's been really good. Like he has been very solid for that team. I think, I mean, hands down, the Red Wings win this one. I don't know how CVY got to how he pried first and a second from Washington. I guess just because they don't think that they need him. But I don't know. I think that's just a case of Washington overvaluing what Anthony Mantha can do. I love Mantha. I wish he was a Pred. He was linked to the Preds for a very short period of time last year. But yeah, I mean, he's really fun to watch, but he is not worth that much. And yeah, I definitely think Stevie Y has regained the title of best GM in the league from Sakic on that one.
I've seen a lot of people compare this to the Erat for Forsberg trade, and I think that's unfair to Washington.
What?
Because Anthony
Mantha's
really
a good player, though.
Like that's what people are. That's what people are saying. Yes, they overpaid for Anthony Mantha, but they overpaid for a first line winger. Like that's not. Yeah. This isn't.
Art Erat.
Both are top.
Art Erat has never been what Anthony Mantha is.
Yeah, I've seen.
He doesn't touch Anthony Mantha.
Like Anthony
Mantha's worst season is Erat's best.
Player. But they overpaid for him.
Top 20 wingers. Both are top 20 wingers. The problem is they're super close, and one's 2 years younger, and then
high quality picks for him.
And a really solid middle six depth piece, like Jeff said.
I do think the one thing that could be a redeeming factor here for Washington is that Mantha has a ton of term left on his deal. and especially in a flat cap era where Vrana, I believe his contract's up at the end of this year.
Yeah.
Is
For the
gonna
Red
probably
Wings,
get a
it
pay
benefits
raise,
them.
which is fine. Yeah, it's fine for. I mean, it's fine for Detroit because they have like $40 million in cap space anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But for
But the
Washington,
Caps-
getting cap security like that is a benefit, so I get it from that perspective as well, just to give Washington a bit of boost here. But
They also buried Verona on like a third line
yeah,
or
he was on
fourth
the
line.
taxi squad
so-
for a bit, wasn't he?
Yeah, so
That's
it does.
insane.
They totally mishandled him.
Oh,
They
that's
mishandled
wild.
him
Didn't he have like
but
30
from their
goals or something crazy
situation.
like that at one point?
Last season.
Or am I just like losing my mind?
You're probably losing your mind, but
He had. Let me check here. He has 25 points in 39 games played this year, and let's see, last year.
25 goals.
Okay, it's 20. That's close.
Yeah,
That's
last year he had 52 and 69 with 25 goals.
Yeah, like
Year
that's,
So
before
he's
he
on
had
pace.
24 and 82.
He was on pace for over 30 goals last
yeah, okay,
season.
that's what I thought it was. No, yeah, he's really good. Mantha, the one thing that Mantha brings to Washington is a really high quality defensive forward. Who, I mean, if you throw him on a line with Backstrom and Ovi, kind of complement that line really well, in my opinion, because he can kind of be that shutdown guy on the line while still providing offense. I mean, Washington gets better today, I think, but long term, Detroit obviously wins this deal.
I think even
That's what Detroit wants.
today, Detroit got better. Like taking on Verona and Panic, I think they
That's fair.
both together hold more value, impact wise at least.
I don't think.
But-
I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think it's a terrible deal for Washington.
No,
Today, at least.
They lost the deal,
Today.
but it's not bad.
but depending on what Eisenman does with those picks, it could make them look absolutely stupid in a few years.
Well, yeah, but I mean that's I don't know. Like I guess when I look at trades, least I don't like that. That's like another argument. 'Cause, I mean, you could trade like Taylor Hall for a 5th round pick and then draft like the next Sidney
Yeah.
Crosby with that 5th round pick. You still
But you're
lost
still-
value wise.
But you're still like overpaying for
No,
the
exactly.
same player.
Yeah.
Which is the problem with it, I think.
So yeah, that trade was wild. Vancouver picked up Madison Bowie for a 5th round
He's
pick.
trash.
Oh no, they got
He's
Bowie in a 5th.
trash.
For a 4th.
He's
from
so bad.
Chicago. Yeah, Madison Bowie
He's
sucks.
worse than Ben. They
Um,
replaced Ben with a worse player.
yeah, he's terrible.
It's such a benning moment.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Oh
on the
my
same
God.
boat there.
Oh, my.
It's been a long day, guys. Florida picking up Sam Bennett for a 2nd round pick. I guess they did get a 6th back. That's fine.
That helps so much.
Wasn't Henneman
Just-
a 2nd round pick as well? Like the prospect they
Who?
gave up too? I'm pretty sure
They
this
have
guy
a
was-
prospect?
Yeah, they threw a prospect into this.
Yeah.
Henneman, I think is how it is. I'm pretty sure he was a 2nd
course
round
they
pick as
did.
well, which is hilarious.
Bennett's so good. Love Bennett.
After Bill, like Zotto's had a great tenure here so far in Florida, and he
Except
just
for
kind
Bennett.
of like
He
I
dropped the
think
ball.
in general here. I think is his deadline because I mean he lost the Connolly trade, and he used the cap space for a
Sam Bennett.
risk on Montour and Sam Bennett. I don't love that. Obviously, Sam
Montour
Bennett
isn't
sucks.
bad. But Sam Bennett is like a glorified
Yeah,
AHL first liner.
this was
Like,
He's worth
He
Nick
should.
Robertson, by the way.
And Kerfoot.
well, apparently, I mean, he
And
went for 2
Kerfoot,
2nd
yeah.
round picks, so
Yeah.
I mean-
that might not have been that far off, to be honest with you.
Bennett's like a former 4th overall pick, and he's got a beard. That's really
He's a
all you can say about him.
grinder. Plays with grit.
Big hitter. That's
He's
all you can say
he's a
about him.
physical presence.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, who knows? Maybe
Yeah.
in a different setting, maybe he finally hits that potential. Probably not, but who knows?
He'll probably just be an average 4th liner.
Yeah, yeah. It was a weird move.
Drop the ball on
It
that
was a
one.
lot to give up for especially when there's other players that I think they could have went after that did that like that. I mean, they could have went after somebody like an Eric Stahl, who I think can still be kind of like grindy, like bottom 6 center for you, and he was cheaper. I think that-
Henneman guy is a 2nd round pick, by the way.
Yeah, 2nd round pick. Yeah, so it was 2 2nd round picks,
43rd overall.
which is more than Jack Eichel. by the or Taylor Hall. Sorry, not Jack Eichel.
Yeah.
Taylor Hall.
Jack Eichel.
Yeah.
Jack Eichel wishes.
I mean, who knows? Maybe Jack Eichel will go for Alex Kerfoot in a fifth or something, and that'll be the
Probably.
trade. Yeah, no, the Sam Bennett was traded for more than Taylor Hall. We'll beat.
You
that
love
one
to see it.
to
You
the
love
end
to
of time.
see that.
Montreal picked up another depth defenseman, Eric Gustafson,
Ugh.
for a 7th round pick.
LOL,
I mean, again-
Montreal.
I mean, again,
They get
value
their-
wise though, like they
They
won
get
the
their
trade,
puck moving guy.
but like this is I was talking about a shooting percentage with somebody earlier today, and if you take away his like 10% shooting bender that he went on in 18-19, he's like a career like 5% shooting defenseman.
Oof.
And he's been below average pretty well everywhere else if you take out that 1 year. So maybe he gets back to I mean, it's Mark Bergevin who seems to just turn everybody into an analytics darling. So maybe he
Well, expected
reverts
goals,
back to
yeah.
that. But yeah, an expected
Montreal
goals
doesn't
darling.
score real goals. They don't score
Yeah,
real
it's
goals.
just the fake ones.
Just the pretend ones that we made up in our heads.
Yeah, basically.
Those ones.
But yeah, again, I mean, it's a trade that on paper they win, but they literally had a better puck moving defenseman in the organization that they let go for nothing. So it's kind of like this is
Burger Van moment.
it's unnecessary. I mean, if they would have kept Mete and then somehow moved like Sherratt today and picked up Merrill, like they're in a really good position. They didn't do that.
Yeah.
So
They did the opposite.
yeah, we're stuck with
making
that.
the team better.
Yeah.
Just added nothing to stay the same.
Oh, Montreal.
Yeah. Jeff's gonna love this one. The Nashville Predators.
God, dude, I don't.
The Nashville Predators became buyers at the deadline, out of nowhere, and
This pains me, bro.
picked up Erica Branson, who has been traded 4 times on this contract now, in exchange for some random AHL guy and a 7th round pick,
Oh, what a trade!
which
Most interesting trade at the deadline.
Jeff,
I'd
what do you
say.
think about this one?
You know what? It's funny because
It is pretty
I was
You're right.
yeah, it's pretty funny. I was in sitting in a group chat on Instagram in study hall, and that was when the Gustafson trade went down. Or actually no, it wasn't. It was before the Gustafson trade. Somebody was talking about Eric Goodbranson being linked to the Leafs, and everybody broke out with a bunch of like LMAOs and LOLs and stuff like that. And then hours later, Branson gets traded to Nashville, and that it's the same reaction. Like I literally said after they had that reaction to the Leafs being linked to him, I was like, oh God. I literally said, imagine if the Preds trade for him. Like in my head, I was like, imagine if that happens. And
Of course it is.
lo and behold, of course they did. David Poyle never fails to. I'm just kidding. He never fails to disappoint. Like real though. Well, it's not even that the value's bad. Like
I mean, 7th
I mean,
round pick
it's
is
Eric-
nothing, so
yeah, no, and it was in 2023, so it's not like we're losing anything crazy.
How it
But
becomes,
it's like
that'd
Yeah,
just be
it's gonna-
funny. I hope
it's
it's
gonna
like
be
Pavel
freaking
Datsyuk or
Henrik
something,
Lundqvist
2.0.
and
Yeah.
it's
That'd just be
like,
hilarious.
it's not even that the value right now isn't bad, and I can understand why you want defensive depth with all the injuries that you've had. But for the millionth time, there were better defensemen on the market that you could have gone and gotten
Yeah, like Eric
Why
Gustafson
do
that
that?
like aren't
for literally the
terrible.
same
I mean,
amount.
Branson is literally worse than like Lucas Spiza.
Hey, Lucas
we
Spiza
also
wasn't bad last year,
acquired.
let's be honest.
Good, yeah.
Like,
He's
look.
probably Winnipeg's one of the best defensemen.
Lucas Spiza was good last
He-
year. But I
He
get your point.
sucks. He's so bad.
Good
I
Branson is
can-
like Jack Johnson.
He's better than Jack. He's better than Jack Johnson, but it is not far off.
Let's keep riling him
Like,
up.
Well,
I
not really.
I
Is he that much better? Like, is
Probably.
he that much better?
don't even tempt me, bro.
Like, look at the charts right now and tell me how red he is.
It's-
He's pretty red.
You
That's
know
all
what?
I'm gonna say about it.
It's
He's probably one of the worst defensemen in the NHL.
Yeah, he might honestly
Yeah.
be the worst defenseman in hockey. Like,
This year he is. It's not close. He's so bad defensively. He's Quinn Hughes defensively.
You know what? It wasn't. You know what? It wasn't even that they got Goodbranson like alone like that. It pissed me off like alone that they got him, but it was also the fact that instead of selling off the assets that they should have sold off, like Granlund, like Haula, like Richardson, like whoever else, they went and got Eric Goodbranson instead of actually.
Why wouldn't you want Eric Goodbranson?
Jack, you know what? Jack, you are pushing me, man.
You know,
This is
Eric,
something.
I just tried in the chat. You like it?
No, I do not.
Is it
I mean, Eric
pleasuring
Branson's
you?
gonna look
You like
really
it?
good sitting in the press box when Tampa Bay absolutely body slams the Predators in 4 games.
Oh yeah.
No,
Sure.
he'll be playing. He'll be the reason why. He'll score goal on his own.
I saw on Twitter that they were gonna put him with Ben Harper, and I wanted to shoot myself in the head. Literally, like
That'd be
two
so
of the
funny.
worst defensemen in the NHL on a pair.
That's-
What else could be better? Unless Poyle is like
It's
doing
Matheson
some
and
3D
Ceci
chess
level,
here
though.
and preparing for the tank. Like he's purposely making moves to tank. Like what are like I don't know. It's just a really confusing move, and I hate it, and I hate everything about it, and I don't like.
I can't stop laughing at his chart, man. It's so funny.
I don't like what Poyle had to say about entire approach to the deadline either, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough of my rant.
The Washington Capitals acquired Michael Raffle for a 5th-round pick, which I don't even think I knew about until just now.
Yeah, I didn't either.
It's fine, I guess. I mean, it's a depth move. Kind of makes up for. I guess he'll play in the same role as like Panic did, although Panic was better. So you're whatever. I mean, it's a depth move for a 5th-round pick. It's not. It's fine. Here's a trade I think actually went really under the radar. That I think could be a big impact one was the Leafs acquiring Ben Hutton for a 5th-round pick. I really like Ben Hutton. I was high
He was
on
actually
him.
really good last year.
I was really high on him at the in free agency last offseason, and I mean he's an upgrade over Bogosian as their 6th defenseman, and I mean Ben Hutton as your 6th defenseman is really good.
Yeah, you can't complain with that.
You can blame Toronto all you want for overpaying for guys at the deadline, but like they objectively got a lot better over the last couple days. Like they did. And at the end of the day, especially for Leaf fans, I think that's really all they care about. But I like Ben Hutton. I think that's a good pickup.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And
Third
finally,
pairing defenseman.
finally, the Winnipeg Jets got Jordy Ben for a 6th. Winnipeg is in kind of the same boat as Edmonton for me, where I just don't think they did enough to really improve. I mean, Jordy Ben's going to be like a 6-7 on most teams. I mean, in Winnipeg, he'll probably be an everyday defenseman, but
He was number 2 on Vancouver.
it's fair. But he wasn't
Played
even
with
like
good teams.
he got pushed out of their lineup in the bubble last year. Like
Yeah.
so, like I don't
He's
know.
probably better than Tyler Myers. But
I think there's
Sorry.
guys that Winnipeg could have went after here, that would have actually helped them. Like even a Ben Hutton, and they didn't. And I think they just kind of missed the boat. Or even a John Merrill. I think Merrill would have been. I preached about that on my story today. John Merrill would have been perfect for Winnipeg. He can play both the left and right side. He's a great shutdown defenseman, and he costed literally a 5th-round pick.
Nothing.
Like
Yeah.
they give up a 6 for Jordy Ben, who's significantly worse. I think that was a huge missed opportunity by them to get Merrill.
Yeah.
I'm not impressed. Like it's the same thing as Edmonton. I just don't think they did enough to actually compete against a team like Toronto.
I like the move from Vancouver's perspective, getting rid of Jordy Ben, who hasn't really been an effective player for his time here in Vancouver. But, of course, you replace him with someone worse, and now it just sucks, and I wish Ben was still here, because he's better than who we got.
So that's it for trades. I guess now we can jump into our winners and losers, which, as I think Jeff pointed out, you can't really do until you find out who everybody drafts. But I don't care; we're doing it anyway.
Good.
So I guess we can start with our losers. Let's start with the negatives first. So let's go through list like I don't know your teams that you think sucked at the deadline.
Edmonton didn't do anything. Winnipeg did a lot less than I expected, and then I think Tampa Bay overpaid a lot, which I don't know if I'd say they're a loser, but they're kind of. I don't think they got enough or they gave up too much.
I'm gonna go with Edmonton because I think they could have done more, and I think they should have done more. Buffalo because they got absolutely killed in the Hall deal, and then Nashville because of Eric Goodbranson.
I'm going.
And I'm also biased.
I'm going with the three teams in the Canadian division. I'm going Winnipeg, Edmonton, Montreal. I don't think any of them did enough to compete with Toronto. I think Toronto far and away, like there's literally zero excuses for the Leafs not to win this division, like easily. Like I think even against a team like Edmonton in the second round, I think that's like a 5-game series, like on paper. I don't think this division's particularly close at this point. And if the Leafs don't win it, it's on them because nobody in this division did anything to improve. So that's kind of my thought process there. So I guess we can move on to the winners of the deadline, end on a high note. Who had the best deadline? Do you think, or
the
top
best
3 teams, I guess, or whatever?
Can't really think of. I think the winner here is Columbus. They did a rebuild in 24 hours. They got 2 picks, but they probably will just draft someone that they could have gotten the 6th round anyways. Other than that, I guess Boston. I think they did really well in that Hall trade, and then they acquired Mike Riley, so I'd have them up there. And for third, I can't really think of another team that did as well as those 2 teams.
For me, I think I'd have Chicago first. I mean, they did really well. They got pretty much everything they wanted, and they got a couple prospects and some picks while they were at it. Next would probably have to be Boston. I love the Mike Riley trade. I love Mike Riley as a player. I think he really helps Boston. And then third would be Columbus for me. I mean, for the reasons that Jack said. They did really well, and Jarmo did an excellent job.
I can't really pick one of these 3 teams. I think they all did fantastic, just in retooling their rosters. And I mean, Chicago, Columbus, and Detroit, I think should all get credit here. Detroit wouldn't have been on there if it wasn't for the Mantha trade, but I mean, Columbus obviously getting 2 first-round picks is for Foligno and Savard is really good. And Chicago did a really good job of like retooling their roster without making it that worse. Like they gained assets, but they didn't get much worse. I think that's something that the team like the Oilers really should have looked into doing if that was the direction they wanted to go. Chicago did a good job of that. I think they're still a competitive team. I think they actually added more players than they gave up, but they also acquired draft capital, so that's really solid. Yeah, I really liked Boston too. I think Boston has made themselves into arguably the best team in that division, along with the Islanders, Pittsburgh, and Washington are all really close as well. But I give the slight edge to Boston at this point when healthy. And Toronto, I think, has to be taught. I know this is way more than 3, but in Toronto, I think, like I said, Toronto overpaid for their guys, but they objectively got better. I think everybody they added is going to help their team win. I don't think they added anybody bad. And they made the most. I guess they were tied for the most moves. They brought in the most players at the deadline, and I think they all everybody they brought in is going to help them for this season. So I have to, although they overpaid for a couple guys, I think that's still a win for what they were trying to do.
I think I'd have Detroit 4th just as an FYI.
Yeah, that's fair. Because it was just kind of the one trade. Ottawa, I think, would get an honorable mention for me too, just because they picked up Victor Mete.
Mete, yeah.
And they sold a couple guys off too, just for I think they got a couple 7ths for, and they got a 3rd for Mike Riley, which is fine because he probably wasn't getting signed there anyway.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, it's a lesser day for them, but anyway. So yeah, I mean, we don't have a game for today because this episode's already been pretty long. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. Next week will be more of a more typical episode, I guess is the word for it. We just kind of wanted to go through everything that happened, and it's been a long day. I've been up since like 4 a.m, and I have like the headaches from drinking way too much coffee. So I guess we could finish off with where you can find everybody.
Jeff, take it away.
All right, yeah, you guys can find me on Instagram at NHL_analysis_. You can find my Substack, and I write for Last Word on Sports, and I'm a Preds writer for the Hockey Writers. You can find all that through the link in my bio. And the Twitter is at JJMid04 if you want to follow me there. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
I'm Jack. You find me at Puck Analytics on Instagram.
Yeah, and NBA hockey on Instagram. If you guys want to go check out my like literally hour-long story on trade deadline today, you guys could go watch that. Also on Twitter at NothingButIron1, which I still haven't changed, but whatever. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. This episode probably was the most high energy at points, but again, we've all been up for a long time, and I'm just ready to go to bed. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next week.